Hi everybody, welcome to this new episode of the WAN Network Show. I'm Rémi Laurin from Semtech, LoRaWAN director, also chairing the LoRa Alliance operator community. Today I'm excited to welcome and feature Digita and Mr. Ari Kuukka, VP IoT of Digita in Finland. Ari, the audience wants to know more about you and your company. Welcome.
Thank you, Remy. Very happy to be here with you. A few words about Digita. We are a Finnish company, and Digita has actually really long roots in data communications and data transmissions. Our roots go back to almost 100 years. Our kind of main business line has always been a broadcast operations. So still today, we take care of all the Finnish nationwide TV and radio broadcasts. That's our kind of roots and the background. But for the past several years, Digita has been setting up a group of new businesses under kind of a digital infrastructure umbrella. We provide telecom towers to MNOs. We provide private 5G networks to companies. And our today's discussion, we operate an IoT network here in Finland and provide capacity and solutions for our customers to use the IoT connectivity.
Okay. So Ari, you are well known for being a LoRaWAN public operator in Finland. So what type of public networks are you deploying in Finland?
We have built and are still expanding and operating a public nationwide network here in Finland. That was our strategy from the very early on. We saw that looking the Finnish customer base, it makes sense to quite early on deploy a fairly large coverage in order to enable certain types of use cases and customer segments. We have many different customer segments who have a bit different needs when it comes to the network and coverage and density. But today, the network is covering pretty much all of Finland. Like I said, the differences for many customers are quite, there's a lot of variation. Water utilities deploying smart meters, they require high density networks in the cities, whereas some other customer is looking for nationwide coverage for his asset tracking use cases. So there's a lot of difference. But what we see is that many of the customers really appreciate having a existing network that they can immediately start to use and deploy their solution.
So the Finnish market is pretty active. It's been the case since the beginning of LoRaWAN's story. So you are famous across the ecosystem. But also the Finnish market is probably specific. You have specific problems to solve in your country. So what are the specificities of the Finnish market and what are the opportunities for LoRaWAN?
It's a good question. Well, first of all, Finland is obviously a pretty small market. And I think that shows up with many of our, especially like a solution provider types of customers. But I have to say, even though we are a small country, there's a lot of activity going on here when it comes to IoT and low power IoT. And a lot of companies are even surprisingly actively looking how can they use these technologies to gain benefits in their own business. I mentioned earlier the water utilities. That's one of our most important customer segments. I think the kind of Finnish specific for that segment is that it's a very fragmented customer segment. There's a lot of small water utilities operated by the local municipalities. So there really hasn't been much consolidation on that market. And that kind of brings certain needs when these companies start to look how can they deploy this new generation of smart meters. They don't have huge resources to set up their own solutions and build and manage their own networks. And a lot of them are very much looking to use kind of existing public networks. Another kind of maybe, I don't know if it's a speciality of Finnish market, but quite typical. We have a lot of companies, kind of solution provider companies building their own end-to-end solutions using IoT technology and LoRaWAN. A lot of them, many of them are really active. Also, many of them are very actively, once they have established their business here in Finland, they are now starting to look into how can they expand into neighboring markets. And that brings us to roaming, which we'll talk a bit later on.
So very clear. So what are the top 3 use cases you are focusing on today?
Water utilities, like I mentioned already, they are clearly one of the top customer segments for us. Finnish utilities, I have to say, they have been really active when it comes to this transition to these new smart meters. And quite a large part of the Finnish water utility ecosystem is already today actively rolling out these smart meters. So that's been a great customer segment for us. I have to say, LoRaWAN as a technology really is a winning technology on that kind of use case. I think there the LoRa's technical strengths are really strong. Another vertical where we see a lot of interest and a lot of potential, just as an example, is electricity distribution. These distribution companies, they have a lot of infrastructure for transmission and distribution of the energy that is really not monitored at all today. There's overhead lines, there's distribution cabinets, transforming substations, a lot of towers and poles. A lot of infrastructure that could be monitored with these low-power IoT technologies, and it could give these companies a lot of new data to improve their maintenance operations.
Makes sense.
So we see a lot of potential in that vertical.
So would you like to share a compelling customer story?
Well, this electricity distribution vertical I mentioned, it's actually a good example of a really interesting, not just a customer case, but like a new type of solution. For the past couple of years, we have been working with one of the biggest customers on that segment here in Finland. Basically, we sat down with the customer a couple of years ago and started to look how could they take advantage of this kind of low power IoT like LoRaWAN in order to bring new types of efficiencies into their maintenance operations, to be able to kind of more preventively do the maintenance of this infrastructure they have. We ended up as one of the kind of tracks we are now developing and rolling out. We developed together with the customer solution for detecting very early on kind of ice and snow build-up on the overhead lines. It's a big problem for these kind of companies here in the northern latitudes with the winter conditions, even breaking out these overhead lines and causing blackouts due to this kind of ice build-up. And now these companies, because they can detect these slowly developing problems early on, they can actually react and fix the problem before it becomes a real issue. So I think it's a great example of how this kind of low-power IoT enables a whole new kind of solution.
Very interesting. Ari, you touched on roaming a few minutes ago. I know that you was involved in the roaming discussion since 3 years ago, and you were one of the first to set up this commercial roaming agreement across Europe. Can you elaborate on this international strategy or roaming strategy? What value do you find in it, and where do you stand?
Yeah, certainly. I think from very early on, what we've seen is that it's a strategically important for the LoRa ecosystem to be able to provide customers with kind of easy access to multinational markets. Like I mentioned here in Finland, I mean, we are a small country, but we have a lot of active growth companies, big and small, who have developed their new or their own end-to-end solutions using LoRaWAN. They have established the solution here in the Finnish market now they are starting to look, okay, how can we expand into Scandinavia or Europe or even globally? They want to enter new markets with their solutions, and they are starting to ask us, okay, how can we utilize this LoRa in this and that country? And I think it's really important for us in the LoRa ecosystem to be able to provide this kind of companies a solution that they can easily expand using LoRaWAN into everywhere where they want to go. And I think that's where roaming is really a key technology and key solution.
Okay. So, and the good news is that we've been working on it. So LoRaWAN roaming specification was released like 2 years ago. And we are lining up roaming agreements. I think in the Nordics also you had multiple interconnections with your neighboring countries. It's something expanding across Europe, so it's a very good news. I think it's a sign of maturity of this LoRaWAN ecosystem. Ari, what if you give a message to those willing to implement LoRaWAN? What would it be?
That's a good question. Well, to put it in a nutshell, I think for many companies, LoRaWAN as a technology, it can really enable whole new kinds of use cases. Not just improve something that's already being done, but really enable and open up whole new solutions and use cases. And obviously that's because of its unique combination of extreme energy efficiency, really long ranges, and kind of a open technology. Testing out LoRa today, I think it's really straightforward, easy. Whether it's a solution that uses the kind of public operator network or a solution that uses kind of more local private connectivity, I think that's actually a good example and one of the big benefits of LoRa, because it's not just for nationwide networks or just for local. It's with the same technology you can do both. So it's very open and it really kind of it doesn't lock you into kind of certain way of doing things. And I think it's certainly worth looking into LoRa if you are considering building up an IoT solution.
So Ari, I think you are a kind of LoRaWAN operator of the future. You succeeded in deploying a nationwide carrier-grade network, building your local ecosystem. It takes years to set it up, and you made it. You're already involved in international, let's say, connection or roaming connection or interconnection, and you know where you go. So I'm convinced I want to subscribe to Digita. What's the process? What do I have to do to register, to buy connectivity to Digita?
Well, you can always contact me or come into our website, digita.fi. You'll find more information from there and details how to contact us. I'm always happy to discuss with the customers or potential customers, see whether LoRa is something that suits them or not. But feel welcome to contact me or anybody from Digita, and we'll see if we can help you.
Thank you, Ari, for having you today. It was really interesting that you shared with us what Digita in Finland is. We learned that Digita is a Finnish incumbent operating as a private 5G operator or system integrators, nationwide LoRaWAN operator in Finland, and also tower companies. It was very interesting to know that there is a local, vibrant IoT ecosystem in Finland, willing to expand internationally. And that's the reason why roaming is important. And you already set up roaming commercial agreement with other LoRaWAN operators in Scandinavia, Europe as well. We learned that the top use cases you are working on is water metering, where LoRaWAN is very strong and dominating the market. And also you shared with us this compelling use case in electricity utilities, monitoring infrastructure, critical infrastructure, preventing issues from snow and ice on overhead lines. Stay tuned, more interviews to come. Follow us on the social and don't forget to register to the WAN Network Show.